How are you? Welcome to Critical Moves of Telesur. Today we're going to be speaking about Lebanon because this country is still on the headlines of all of the international news media. After the Prime Minister demand that there be a renovation of the Prime Minister and there be an anticipated election. To what point do these manifestations are due to the economic recession? Is it true that behind the social protest is the hand of the United States? Who benefits from the situation of instability? This is what we're going to be analyzing today. Let's go over the reactions after the Prime Minister has withdrawn.
Puse mi renuncia en manos del presidente
I
y de
put
todo el pueblo libanés.
my withdrawal to the
Las
president.
posiciones van y vienen.
The positions
Lo
come and
importante
go. However,
es la dignidad
what's
y la seguridad
important
del país.
is the
También
security
digo
of
que
the
no hay nada
country.
más grande que el país.
I say that there's nothing bigger than the country.
Que Dios proteja al Líbano.
God
Viva
bless
el pueblo
the
y el
country.
Líbano.
Our first demand is the government to change. And the second, we want anticipated elections because the parliament does not represent us. What are they afraid of? This corrupt government is a problem we have to face in the future. Otherwise, we'll always go back to this point. The violence could escalate. However, the good news is that we might stay. We're going to stay here and we're not going to leave. We'll stay until there is an implementation of reforms. I'm not afraid for Hezbollah. I'm afraid for the country because somebody could cause tensions that might lead to a civil war. Let's locate Lebanon. Lebanon is the scenario of the world protest. It has a surface of 10.4 thousand kilometers. The limits are the Mediterranean Sea, to the west with the Mediterranean Sea, with the south Israel, north and east Syria. The capital is Beirut. Since it's in the middle of the country, it's a strategic place with no competition in the region. For this reason, the city is the main port of the country. The country has one of the human development index largest in the country, in the region. The main cities are located throughout the coast. In economic field, underneath the coastal area, there are 800 billion square feet of natural gas and tons of thousands of barrels of oil. This means that they could generate $100 billion. The selling of natural gas could help them overcome their debt. We're going to go over the press and the digital websites. Let's see, for example, Almanar. New intervention. Pompeo asked Lebanon to form a new government. The United States has asked Lebanon to form a new government. This before the demission of the former president, and they have asked the political authority to form a new country, a new government that could allow the country to become prosperous once again. This according to Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State of the United States. Pompeo also demands that there be no violence and that the peace be maintained and to guarantee the rights and security of the people who are manifesting on the streets. What does RFI, Radio France Internationale? The Lebanese banks are opened once again after the protests. They have opened this Friday after 2 weeks of being closed, once they're recovering some type of normality. The Lebanese are afraid that the reopening of banks may come along with a devaluation of their currency. However, the central bank has announced that will not be happening. In the parallel market, the currency has increased to 1,700 pounds per dollar. The president of the country, Michel Aoun, has promised this Thursday that the ministers of the next government will be elected due to their competencies and not to what political party they are part of. The public debt is in hands of 80% of the commercial banks, and it's $86,000 million. This is 150% of the GDP. This is one of the largest ones in the world. Now let me recommend the article called Lebanon from Beginning to the After. It's written by Wafiki Rahima. Let's read some articles. She says that it is said that the authorities were working just for particular interests, or at least they were not able to stand firm against the demands. Some of the demands may be done to open and pressure for future demands. And these could be demands of asking for withdrawals of certain officials. There's a question here. What else will happen after? We have a correspondent in Lebanon. Let's talk to her. Wafika. The Lebanese government has decided to give the citizens the responsibility of paying the debt. And of course, this affects the poorest part. This is like 15%, the VAT, the tax. There will also be an increase in tax of the imported goods, and this is fundamental to the people because there is a lack of national production. There will be a $6 increase in the cell phone communications. However, there will not be any taxes that affect banks or big companies. These two sectors have benefited themselves from with the bonuses. And this is why the people are taking to the streets. Lebanon has a huge debt. It's 160% more the debt than the income. 3 days after the beginning of the protest, the government decided to present a document of reform to calm down the people. And they established they spoke about the richest sectors in the country. This is water, electricity, cell phones. But it was rejected by the people on the streets. And this is what Harit has denounced. Additionally, in Lebanon, there is the impact of the Syrian migrants. According to the World Bank numbers and to the International Monetary Fund, Lebanon loses $3 billion annually. Lebanon is baffled by the cost that the refugees imply for their economy. And if you add about that the collapse of the infrastructure, without forgetting the competition that the refugees imply for the workers of Lebanon themselves, Now, there are great challenges for the people. The people needs a new government, but Hezbollah, as the main associate to the government, doesn't want to give pass to this. With this division, additionally to the big pressures, along with other regional issues, things are not going well, and apparently they're going to abyss until there is an agreement between all of the parties. As part of the regional conflict with Iran, Saudi Arabia is afraid that Lebanon will be a base. Now, Saudi Arabia is trying to regroup their former allies to form a front that will stop the expansion of the resistance and try to stop them in Lebanon. On the other hand, Iran is benefiting with the support of Hezbollah and its role as an international player, and now even more in the conflict with Israel, and in one way or the other with Saudi Arabia. The Lebanon resistance has been able to repel Iran and has shown a great force that has allowed other allies to revert the balance of the world power in favor of Iran. Thank you, Wafika. Let's go to our first pause. Let's not forget that on social media we have questions with which you can interact with us. Today is: are the social protests in Lebanon 100% legitimate, or there foreign intervention in there? Who would benefit by a change in the government or the parliament? This is the question. Well, these are the questions. Please participate and give us your opinion. We're going to a pause. In what context is the new social political situation of Lebanon? Let's look into this. Lebanon has a problem for some years of a political and social problem. And then Michel Aoun and Saeed Hariri and Naib Berri have declared that the country is in an economic emergency. Therefore, there is a need for a plan. There will be an increase of taxes that will increase the 10%. After October, that there will be a decision of withdrawing of Saeed Hariri. Thousands of people have taken to the streets, and there has been a confrontation with the authorities. The protests will continue due to the economic crisis. There was a the products started to be scarce, and the banks closed. With the protest, the government said that there will be no increase of taxes. However, the marches continue. Regardless of the differences with the Prime Minister, Hezbollah has rejected the option of Hariri withdrawing because this only speaks about the instability of the country. However, Hariri has expressed his will to go back to the government. Hezbollah insists that beyond the social demands, the protesters are pushed by the White House. Let's start with our analysis. Let's start with Dr. San Vicente. Thank you very much for being with us. There is a recent fact, which is the stepping down of Said Hariri, and this might be a game changer. Well, at least one might think that could be everything solved, but we still see people that manifest on the streets. And President Aoun says Hariri is staying for a prudential time until there is a change. Well, we should recall a little bit about what we were commenting some time ago. Let's recall the personality of Hariri. Let's not forget that in 2017, Hariri was sequestered for a couple of hours, and then he was pressured that he would step down from his post. All of the comments say that the alliance of Israel and the United States is that Hariri stepped down and that there be an instability in the country, and this would lead a confrontation in Lebanon. And according to the information that has been leaked, France, who has a lot of interest there, who pressured, and we know that Iran and Saudi Arabia also had a step in this. Well, Hariri has put up with a year of the demands of Hezbollah. At the beginning of 2019, in February, the situation was unsustainable, and there was an agreement between Hariri and President Aoun. And in this way, there not be an intervention of international forces. So there was an agreement signed by 3 of the main organizations in the country, and with 15 ethnic communities that also represent 6 million Lebanese and the 1.5 million refugees from other countries. But this was fast, because the next month the situation was becoming unsustainable. And this is why Pompeo puts a step in this. And what he does is his role as secretary. And let's not forget that the family of Hariri is the richest one of Lebanon. These are 8 family conglomerate control all of the economy of Lebanon. In any case, we could say it's like 3,600 people. And after that, there has been a threat through Israel. This comes from August 29th. The Israeli government threatened that they were not going to tolerate anymore the presence of Hezbollah in Lebanon. As a consequence of this, This internal part, which is the victim of the boycott, all of the pressures from the World Banks. Let's not forget that the banks were closed 6 days, and well, coincidental, now that Hariri left, all of the banks have opened once again. And yes, there were many pressures. Everything indicates that using the corruption in bad state, a state that is not improving, but totally different. All of this has led that the imperialism be able to manipulate, as in other zones. Just to exemplify, the mobilizations of 2015 were clearly pushed by a sector of the high bourgeoisie that wanted to launch a bomb of Hezbollah in the U.S. However, in 2018 and 19, due to the policy of, we could also put many others, and it's been the social sectors, the popular sectors, that have added up to this mobilization. And of course, they're right. And the last information, the Western press said that if it's so bad, and this would be Gina Downs, and she's a professor. She said that everybody should leave so there could be a secular and technocratic government. This university was founded by Christian American citizens who came to Beirut to create a university with an interracial and interethnic people. This private university has great relationships with the largest neoliberal organizations of universities in the States. As one of the leaders on behalf of this movement, not of all movements, but just of this movement that demands a technocratic government. If a technocratic government is imposed, then just imagine. So let's imagine, I don't want to say bye to this, but because it calls my attention how you just said I would like to go a little bit more into depth this theory of what this American professor says, that they all should just leave. And now Hariri says that he could come back if there is a technocratic government. And what we've seen in the last years, in the last days, is the people on the streets. This means that there would be an opinion that is being imposed. On behalf of the people, I think particularly are the working class. The people who work, those who pay the consequences. The 8 big family conglomerates, the Hariri family, are not paying any of the consequences. Second of all, their palaces, their pool have all of them have electric systems. However, the people who are rich really don't need to have the banks open because they have other means of withdrawing money from international banks. Here there is a problem that we have spoken about it more than once.
Pero si es el caso de los cristianos, si es el caso, por ejemplo, de los drusos y otros sectores
There are a
que
couple of
funcionan como los
sectors,
cristianos, la Iglesia
like the
Evangélica Cristiana
Christians
y las iglesias cristianas ya se han posicionado a
and
favor
the
de la
Christians of
política
the
de
Seventh
cambiar
Day,
los Estados
they
Unidos,
also
porque
have
cuando estos
spoken in
sectores
favor
se
of the
distancian
U.S.
del
policy
pueblo, manipulan al pueblo, un
because
sector
they
del
like to
pueblo, no todo
manipulate the
el pueblo,
people.
un
Well, they
sector del
don't
pueblo les
manipulate
sirve,
all of
¿no?
the people, but
Y
just some
esto hay
part
que
of
insistir
the Syrian people.
claramente.
And this is important to
Se está
insist.
produciendo, como en todas circunstancias, una situación
There
de
is a situation of
polarización social, ¿no?
polarization.
Dependerá de la
It will
capacidad
depend
de
on the
aún, de la
capacity
capacidad de aún el presidente, la capacidad de otros partidos
of
progresistas
other
y otros
political
partidos
parties
democráticos o sectores musulmanes que ayudan al pueblo,
and other
que
sectors that
tienen
help
asistencia social, etcétera, o
this
sectores de
country,
izquierda que
or
también
maybe
los hay,
some
para evitar que el
left-wing
imperialismo, para decirlo
organization.
sencillamente, el imperialismo manipule por medio de la universidad
And what they want to do is,
de la universidad americana, por medio del dinero, por medio de
what they
las
want
grandes
is to
familias,
get the hands
manipulen
off
al
of the
sector
American
alienado, ¿no?
university
Podríamos poner
so they
muchos
won't have an
ejemplos con
influence
respecto a
on the
eso, ¿no?
alienated
Pero
sector.
esperemos que esta vez
Let's expect
el
that the
pueblo
people,
trabajador
this time,
de
the
Líbano
working
haya
class
aprendido la lección.
citizens of Lebanon learned their lesson.
A la audiencia de Telesur reflexiones sobre las cuales vamos a proseguir en otro momento de nuestra jugada crítica, analizando con otro invitado.
Well, let's continue analyzing.
Hasta la próxima.
Vaya, eskerrik asko zuei, agur.
Claro que sí. Vamos a marcar entonces otra pausa.
Well, let's go to a pause, and when we're back, we will be talking to a Lebanese citizen who's going to give us his standpoint on what's going on in Lebanon. The current situation impacted on the world. The political crisis and economic crisis that Lebanon is facing has several reasons. One are the sanctions of other governments. United Nations, in more than one opportunity, has demanded Israel to stop the aggressions to Lebanon and respect the Security Council's statement. That year, Israel attacked for 33 days this country, but they confronted a defeat. Last year, there was another attack. Geopolitically, Lebanon is a country that's confronted with Israel and the U.S. This is due to the resistant political movement, Hezbollah. Hezbollah is an important ally of the Syrian government, Bashar al-Assad. Therefore, Lebanon has strong ties with Iran and Iraq, and at the same time, they have great ties with Russia. Saudi Arabia has also tried to find situations that could. That was evident when Mr. Hariri recently resigned. In a very curious way, Hariri said that there was an attack on his life organized by Iran. However, Michel Aoun did not accept his resignation.
¿Con quién él estaba dialogando? Por eso es que como que cuando me quedé frente a la cámara. Raimundo
Capci, he's a lawyer, expert in the Middle East. And so tell me, what's going on in this country? Well, Ray, thank you very much for your invitation. It's a pleasure to be back here. Well, to speak about Lebanon is not about the current manifestations, and it's not a measure that the government has imposed. We must understand something about Lebanon so we can speak about it. Ever since Indonesia up to Morocco, in the World Bank, in the world map, all along the borders, there are 1,575 Muslims, 57 countries. The only country within this zone the majority of their population However, due to an agreement from the independence of 1943, the president can be Christian. He has to be the chief of the army, and he has to be Christian. And in the third place, that the central bank president is Christian. So we must understand. So we must understand that the Christians are minority. Yes, 35%. It's not, doesn't go much further. Well, 65% are Sunnis or Shiites. If you allow me to say, Shiites and Sunnites in their order, in this order. So this country knew how to overcome all of the problems of the Middle East. And they've done it with sharing all they can. I recall when I was a small kid, I was 15 when I came to Venezuela and I made it my own country. So when I was young, we used to say, we're not happy with just saying that Lebanon is the Switzerland of the Middle East. No, we have to work with the new generations to make Lebanon as the model for the other countries all around the world. So this same Lebanon, the influential group, be they Muslim or Christian, they dominated the country for over $25 million. Well, you say that Lebanon is in debt. Can you tell me to what extent this is true? Well, Lebanon as a country, they have a debt in almost $100,000 million, billion in this case.
Cuando usted habla de la casta dominante, no necesariamente se está refiriendo al gobierno.
Well, let's talk about the elites now. Those who rule in the political realm, economic realm, and in the military realm. These are the elites. So we're going to find that 50 people, 50 families of Lebanon have information in the Switzerland banks. They have deposited in their accounts, this country that doesn't want to make the necessary reform, they have 3 times more money than the country's debt. So Lebanon has uncomparable richness, especially in this. On the coast they have, and the gas, and the natural gas.
Cuadrantes algunos que están siendo disputados por Israel.
Well, this gas represents, it goes all the way from the Turkish barrier all the way to Egypt. Well, it's
Gaza, que es parte de Palestina, está inclusive hasta Egipto y está Chipre también. Entonces,
pero no es Palestina la que le disputa al Líbano los cuadrantes en la parte sur, sino el Estado de Israel.
Well, this would be the state of Israel. It's not the people, it's the state of Israel who is also attacking Lebanon. And they have gone against all of the resolutions of United Nations. So what's going on? Well, Israel is floating already. So now they defy the people. And the West, in this saying, the US and Europe, They
estos dos cuadrantes disputados por Israel dentro de tus aguas
they don't
territoriales.
allow
Déjelo a Israel en vez de que
the
Israel,
Americans
que debe su
to
existencia
to
a
lift
este occidente criminal
all of
para
the
el Medio Oriente.
sanctions.
Entonces, en vez de pedir a Israel que por favor deja que el Líbano pues aproveche sus riquezas, no hay manera. Ahora bien, ¿qué está pasando?
Well, what's happening?
La población quiere cambio. La población no habló
The opposition wants a change. They didn't even speak about the tax that WhatsApp is going to receive. The people spoke about corruption, of all the debt they're getting.
de las recientes medidas.
Mucho más allá en el tiempo y mucho más allá que lo que quieren presentar los medios de comunicación.
What they really want to do is dissolve the international news media. Well, just let me acknowledge publicly to this great role that you are playing with this change, with this awakening in our continent. I am very proud. This is not just for the Lebanese people. So what the people want is a change, an economic change, an economic, social. How is it possible that the Prime Minister of the United States presents a case where he's going to reduce the gap between 2005
participado en todo este caos económico en el país, entonces
and
6-7 mil millones de dólares, de 100 mil millones de dólares.
Yo voy a aprovechar este momento, doctor Kapchi, para que, como libanés, conocedor de la realidad de su país, nos explique quién es Saad Hariri.
So what I want to do is to take some time, and I would thank you if you gave us an outlook of who are the authorities here. Because we cannot forget that some months ago he was involved in the resigning that Saudi Arabia demanded and that the president didn't accept. Well, the Hariri family, that is very respectable, they have they are Sunnites, and they've been prime ministers since 1941. His father was assassinated. He had been made great things, but he also created an economic failure. Well, he worked in Saudi Arabia with the Fahd king. He constructed airports, and he went back to Lebanon. And after the Civil War in 1975 and 19, he is going to make a presentation among the different political parties that represent Ecuador and along with international guests. And this was in Saudi Arabia. And then he just jumps into stardom, like the legitimate representative of the minority, of the Sunnite minority within the government. Well, they're all majority. Nobody represents it 50%. So he made great things in infrastructure, like the airport, to the port, to the center of Beirut. But he didn't go to the bottom of the social economic problem. And that this goes back to the post-war seasons. Well, this is true because Lebanon could never escape to all of the tensions in the Middle East. So to speak about this, we have to call things by their name. They couldn't escape from the U.S. hegemony. I remember in the 1958, when the U.S. got to the port. And, well, then we had to flee, and I've been here in Venezuela ever since. Well, these circumstances, we have lived it before. What they do is they start in the current affairs, and ever since dominated the political life in the name of this Sunnite political war. But he was assassinated, and then his son comes and inherits, which is popular in the life of. They used to be a part of the authorities. Well, these posts go down in generations because the family goes all the way back, and now they're grandchildren. Well, this with a policy that is totally in line with the interests of Saudi Arabia. Several parts are part of this schema.
No necesariamente positiva a favor de los libaneses o del Líbano, pero siempre han tenido. El señor estuvo al servicio de la política
Mr. Hariri was serving
de Arabia Saudita.
Saudi Arabia. Where did he make his biggest mistake? It was in the fact that for him to be able to form a cabinet after so many differences with everybody, he had to. Well, he had to go to a different political position. And there are in the Sunni religions, there are like 30 ramifications. And the Shiites, there's Hezbollah, which we call resistance, and the political party Amal. This mistake caused the hate of Saudi Arabia. And they took him there to take away whatever you and your father had stolen. And ever since, Hariri has a debt with Saudi Arabia and the U.S. too. We saw the declarations of Mike Pompeo, who said, well, no, Hariri has to change. So what West hasn't been able to do with all of the policies against Lebanon. So what they want now is through this mechanism. They want to obligate Hariri in the name of the Sunnis to take the guns away from Hezbollah. Could you explain this a little bit more? Hassan Nasrallah has said that if this happens, if Hariri leaves, the United States will put its claws in Lebanon. I agree. 2 days ago, I wrote an article saying the people want change, not the change that the government is offering them. Well, it's important to say this because it's necessary to know what change that they demand and what is the change that the foreign affairs institutions are eluding. Listen, the motive why Lebanon went to the streets, there is a change against all of the liars, all of the richness, and all of these people who have their money outside the country and not go to privatization. And in some way solve the problem of exploitation of gas and petroleum. Now Now you tell me, all of the Protestants live this? No. This is the dilemma, and this is where we would need all of the other options. What they want to do is to make of this Lebanese movement a second Arab Spring. And what they really want to do is not to even work with the needs of the majority. So when they come to say that they're going to form a government, that was the most logical thing to do, because what we see, if we're reading behind the line, between the lines, it's important to see that they want to do away with Hezbollah. And we know that the people who walk in with the public sector should not have a political heart. So yes, precisely, to defend all of the rights of the rest. These are people that are going to the streets, not only from Beirut, from Tripoli, Sidon to the south, and Baalbek to the east, to Akri. Now they want to deviate this water from its natural path using what I insist, in terms of the resistance, Lebanon was able to go over the Middle Eastern group.
Y aquí está entonces parte de la respuesta de la pregunta que tenemos planteada. ¿Qué pescadores quieren pescar en este río revuelto?
Voy para allá.
So to analyze who is going to benefit from this, it's important to say that there is a trio that represents all of the Lebanese people, army, and university. This is how we've been able to overcome this.
De los protestantes.
Exacto, los manifestantes.
Pero quienes tienen un interés
digamos que es la protesta legítima.
But let's say that the protest was legitimate.
Totalmente con esa, el futuro de las generaciones.
Well, the future of the upcoming generations depends on the positive changes that may be done.
Ahora bien,
well,
profesor, ya nos quedan
let's
muy pocos
just
minutos.
listen to this.
Hablamos
Professor,
de la protesta legítima. ¿Quiénes entonces estarían detrás de la protesta no legítima, de la protesta, digamos, maquillada?
Who would be behind all of these protests that have been masked, that could be pushed by U.S. interference? Well, there is a sector of Christian Lebanese that do not agree with this, because they consider that any sovereign independence policy will benefit Islam. So yes, there is a second interest there. When they talk that they're contrary to Islam, because right now they're in the zone, and they identify themselves. Islam represents 90% of the zone population. Of all of these countries that I said that there are 57 countries of the world. So there is a sector of Christian Lebanese. There's another minority group of Shiites, and there's another bigger sector that is again against the Hariri policies. And these people grew up under the power of Hariri father and Hariri son. So why? Because this is a sector that has always felt that the independence of Lebanon doesn't stop at the border of Lebanon with Syria, or with Jordania, or with Palestine itself, but they represent part of a conglomerate of people that represent everything that I said, and that their loyalty has
Y esto
always
no
been
quiere
beyond
renunciar a
any
los
borders,
privilegios que le
and they
puede dar
don't want
esto a
to
través de la
give up
intervención extranjera,
all of the good life that they
verbigracia
have.
saudí en el caso de estos musulmanes. Y lo dicen a los cuatro vientos, o sea que no esconden esta realidad. Por esto que ahora, ¿cuál es
For this that I just said,
gobierno que yo
what
veo?
is the government that I
Es casi
see?
traído por el cabello frente a esta avalancha internacional.
It's an
de
avalanche,
suposiciones y de
economical
posibilidades y no sé qué
avalanche.
más. Es un gobierno militar. Y no estoy pescando en agua revuelta.
And this doesn't mean that I'm trying to take advantage of
Ni
anything.
siquiera esto. El tecnócrata es
The technocrats
desde la posición de ministro hacia
from the
abajo.
position of minister to the
Porque
bottom,
debe haber
because there must be
un sector
a
que
sector
cree en la soberanía,
that
la
believes in
independencia
the
del país.
independence
¿Y quién
and
más que
sovereignty
un
of the country.
general,
And
un
of course,
almirante?
the most called to do this is
necesariamente me diría
a
alguno, es verdad,
colonel,
no
an
necesariamente,
admiral.
pero en la crisis
Not
del Líbano,
necessarily,
vaya a ver
but of
si es
course,
o no
by
es
logic,
necesario.
it would be this person.
Es que no estoy trayendo nada por el cabello en la política libanesa. Desde 1943
Ever since
hasta ahora,
1943 up till
ha
now,
habido
there has
4
been
generales del ejército
4
que han
army
sido
generals that have been
presidentes electos del
presidents
Líbano.
elected
Es decir, siempre en
to
los momentos
Lebanon.
difíciles
So always,
recurrimos
when there is
nosotros a la Fuerza
a
Armada. Y por
gallery,
eso
we always
pueblo,
do go
Fuerza Armada y resistencia.
to both of our guests.
Absolutamente.
So
Por eso que cuando yo veo aquí un ministro de la defensa
when
como
I
el
see
nuestro,
a minister of
los
defense like
oficiales como los
ours, an
nuestros,
official
cuando
like
alzan su
ours,
brazo y dicen
when they
leales
raise
siempre
their
y
hands
traidores nunca,
and they
yo me
start to
siento que estoy
criticizing
en
them,
una plaza
I
en
feel that
Beirut,
I'm in a
en
plaza
Trípoli, en Sidón,
in
en
Tripoli, in
Tiro. ¿Por
Sidon,
qué?
and
Porque esta
Beirut,
es la
because
solución.
this is the
¿Quién
solution.
es el ejército?
Who
El
is the
ejército es
who
líder
is
del
the
pueblo. Ahí no
military?
tenemos
They're part
hijos
of
de
the.
los grandes magnates
We don't have
que
people,
hacen
rich people
soldados
there.
y
No,
que entregan
these are
su vida
people
por la
that are
independencia,
sons
por la
of
soberanía,
the working
¿verdad?
class, and they
Pero
give their
sí,
life for
hay
sovereignty.
posibles generales.
However,
Ya
there
acabamos de
are
decir,
generals,
hoy en día el general jefe
like for example,
del ejército
my
libanés
my
es un familiar del
the
presidente
leader
es
of the
cristiano igual
Lebanese
que él,
of the Lebanese
maronita
government
como yo.
is a
Entonces, por
relative
eso que
of another
ahora, de que
authority.
sea tecnócrata, llama a la reflexión. ¿Cuándo sale la palabra tecnócrata que no lo habían dicho
Well,
y hasta ahora los manifestantes?
there's a question
¿Cuándo
about
sale la rectora
vocabulary.
o el
They want to
rector de la
know
Universidad Americana de Beirut
when to
y la
use
otra
the
universidad cristiana y piden un cuadro tecnócrata para solucionar problemas? Y yo te insisto,
they are
¿quién
asking
más
for
que estos
somebody who has
tecnócratas que hasta una semana nos
important
decían que el Líbano
information
marcha
and
muy bien,
experience
de que la banca
in
está,
in the
de buena
measurements
salud,
of
cosas de buena salud,
economy.
etcétera, etcétera? Esto mismo lo voy a llevar yo a el presidente del Banco
The president of the central bank is one of these technocrats.
que sabe de banca más que él y mira
There's
dónde estamos.
nobody else who knows a little bit better than this. Well, thank you very much, Professor Capchi.
Gracias.
Vamos a plantear las conclusiones.
Let's go see conclusions.
Reclamos sociales legítimos
Demands of the social sectors, or are they pushed by the outside? Anticipated elections, a political government, or a technocratic president. This is what we'll be analyzing in the next days, always keeping in mind that whatever happens in this nation, in Lebanon, will impact, without a doubt, the geopolitics of this area. For now, this is all. See you tomorrow.